And I was curious about, because when you and Jim were wrestling in WWF or before that, you guys were like wrestlers. You would go out every night and wrestle. And then you go to WWF and they're making action figures for people. There's Pile Driver, the wrestling album. Vince McMahon's doing Stand Back. How did you kind of acclimatise to that absolute mentalness of late 80s WWF?
Well, when I first went to WWF, the Tonga Kid was doing some storyline with Jimmy Snuka. He'd only been in the business about 10 minutes. He was like 19 or something. And he got a check for, supposedly, I don't know how true this is, I never saw the check, but he got a check for 1 week's work for like 15 or 20 grand or something like that. And he turned it in and quit because it wasn't enough. And I remember it was like, I was making in those days maybe $700 a week wrestling for my dad 7 days a week, which was decent for after 6 years of hard labor. And then when I went to WWE, I remember like I really was in my mind is like the first check, I'm gonna quit. You know, they're gonna fire me any day now, but if my check is lousy check, first check I get, if it's I'm gonna quit. I'm just gonna go home because I'm tired of being on the road. And so I remember I got my first check and it was like, I was like nobody on the card plus one other match. And I got a check for like $3,500 US for my first week working for WWE, something like that. And I remember as soon as I got the check, I called home and told my first wife. I called her and I said, I'm going to be here a long time. And I remember it was a big thing to me. Suddenly even though I was nobody and I was nobody and not in a big position, I was making more money than I ever made in my life. But we hear about what other guys were making. Like I just said, Tonga Kid was main event with Snuka and made, I think 15 grand, might have been just for Madison Square Garden. And he quit because they felt he should have got more pay. And so you start to see a lot of guys making money. And I can remember the Iron Sheik, for example, opening up his check in the dressing room. He got his first the action figures came out. Those rubber wrestling dolls came out. And there was only about 6 figures. Like there was Hogan, Sergeant Slaughter, Iron Sheik. Anyway, it was about 6 figures, 6 wrestling action figures they first came out with. They sold like crazy. And I remember Iron Sheik got a check in the dressing room for, I think it was $100,000 or close to it. And he opened it in the dressing room and he brought her over to, he goes, how much is this? He thought it was $99. And so, I mean, you see it, it's like, that's $100,000 check. And it was the first one for the quarter. Like might be 3 more of those coming in the year. And so everybody wanted an action figure now. Like everyone's like, I can't wait. And that's probably where I was like, my horse is going to be in the box. But it was a big, there was a lot of money to be made. And it was, there was other guys, they hand out these royalty checks for, like, if you bought a Hulk Hogan doll, you got to get the Iron Sheik doll to wrestle with. So Sheik made more money than he knew what to do with. And Bundy, like his figure is like, so there's a lot of certain, like 6 guys would make a lot of money, the first 6, and then the next 6. I remember by the time they came out with my action figure was like after the 40th wrestling figure they made, or maybe even 50th. I remember my royalty checks were much smaller than that. And it was like, I missed the flood of the real gravy that came with that. And I was a little late in the game on that one.